terrace, a promenade outside this distinguished row of houses. The first object of all to be seen here when the early affairs of morning have been brushed away.
Mr. Parker, this must be the delightful Charlotte Heywood my aunt has been telling me all about.
Yes, indeed. Charlotte, may I present Sir Edward Denham of Denham Park?
Charming. How charming. I believe we are to walk. Perhaps, Charlotte, you would accompany me?
My pleasure. There seems something agreeable in his air and address, and well, his title does him no harm. But what of him and Clara? Does he walk with me to pique her?
Indeed, the pleasure is all mine. To walk with so fair a maiden on a cliff, to view the sea and its shore, to feel the emotions they summon, its terrific grandeur of the ocean in a storm, its glassy surface in calm, its gulls, its sapphires, its abysses, its quick vicissitudes, its dreadful deceptions, its mariners tempting it in sunshine and overwhelmed by it in a sudden tempest.
Oh, well, yes. For having lived my whole life inland, this is the first time I have ever seen the sea. And it is indeed very grand.
Do you remember Scott's beautiful lines on the sea? Oh, what a description they convey. You know, they're never out of my thoughts when I walk here. That man who can read them unmoved must have the nerves of an assassin. Oh, heaven defend me from such a man.
What description do you mean? I remember none at the moment of the sea in either of Scott's poems.
Do you not? No. Well, nor can I exactly recall the beginning at the moment. But you can not have forgotten his description of women. Oh, women in our hours of ease. Oh, it's delicious. Delicious.
Oh.
Had he written nothing more, he would have been immortal. And then again, that unequalled, that unrivalled, that addressed parental affection. Some feelings are to mortals given, with less of earth in them than heaven, etc. Whilst on the subject of poetry, what do you think of Burns's lines to his Mary?
He means the woman he pursued, having already made 2 other women bear his children.
I've read several of Burns's poems with great delight.
As have I. Well, I'm not poetic enough to separate a man's poetry entirely from his character.
Yes. With Burns, there is pathos to madden one. If ever there was a man who felt, it was he. Montgomery had the fire of poetry. Wordsworth had the true soul of it. Campbell, in his Pleasures of Hope, touched the extreme of our sensations, like angels' visits, few and far between. Can you conceive of anything more sublime, more melting, more fraught with deep emotion than that line? But Burns, I confess my sense of his preeminence. If Scott has a fault, it's a want of passion, tender, elegant, descriptive, but tame. The man who cannot do justice to the attributes of woman is my contempt.
I think we know what attributes of women he is referring to, and the sort of man that sees nothing more in a woman than those attributes.
Oh, sometimes, indeed, a flash of feeling seems to irradiate Scott, as in the lines we were speaking of, oh, women in our hours of ease. But Burns, always on fire. His soul was the altar in which lovely lady sat enshrined. His spirit truly breathed the immortal incense which was her due.
But, well, Burns' known irregularities greatly interrupt my enjoyment of his lines. I have difficulty in depending on the truth of his feelings as a lover. I have not faith in the sincerity of the affections of a man of his description. Well, he felt, he wrote, and then he forgot.
Can any woman be a fair judge of what a man may be propelled to say or write or do in the sovereign impulses of illimitable ardour?
I really cannot comment on that matter. Well, this is such a charming day. The wind, I fancy, must be southerly.
Edward, you are monopolising the lady. Come, my dear, won't you take a stroll with me?
Oh, of course, Lady Denham.
Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Heywood. I will away to the lending library.
And how do you find my nephew?
Well, very full of feelings and talking in newest-fashioned hard words. I was unclear of his intentions.
Oh, feelings, intentions, consequent actions, there's the rub. Now, Miss Esther wants me to invite her and her brother to stay for a week at Sanditon House with me, as they did last year. But I shan't. She's been trying to get round me every way with her praise of this and her praise of that. But I saw what she was about. I saw through it all. I'm not very easily taken in, my dear. They are my young folks. That's what I call them sometimes. I had them with me last summer for a week, about this time, from Monday to Monday. and very delighted and thankful they were. I would not have you think that I only noticed them for poor dear Sir Harry's sake. Oh, no. Poor Harry. Oh, I thought, between ourselves, that he really expected more, but he is gone, and we must not find fault with the dead. Nobody could have lived happier together than us. He was an honourable man, quite the gentleman of ancient family. And when he died, I gave Sir Edward his gold watch. Oh, he did not bequeath it to his nephew, my dear. It was not a bequest, it was not in the will. He only mentioned, and that but once, that he wished his nephew to have the watch. But it need not have been binding if I had not chose it.
Very kind indeed, very handsome.
Oh, yes, my dear, and it's not the only kind thing I have done by him. I have been a very liberal friend to Sir Edward. And poor man, he needs it bad enough. For although I am only the dowager, and he is the heir, things do not stand between us, as they so commonly do between such parties. No, not a shilling do I receive from the Denham estates. Sir Edward has no payments to make me. He don't stand uppermost, believe me. It is I who help him. I let him live on my Denham estate entirely rent-free.
Oh, he's a very fine man, particularly elegant in his dress.
Yes, yes, he is well to look at, and it is to be hoped that some lady of large fortune will think so, for Sir Edward must marry for money. He and I often talk the matter over, and a handsome young man like him will go smirking and smiling about and paying girls compliments, but he knows he must marry for money. And Sir Edward is, in the main, a very steady young man, and has some very good notions.
Oh, Sir Edward Denham, with such personal advantages, may surely be able to get a woman of fortune if he chooses it.
Why, my dear, that's very sensibly said. And if we could but get an heiress to Sanditon. But heiresses are monstrous scarce. I don't think we have had an heiress at Sanditon since it's been a public place. Oh, families come after families. But as far as I can learn, not 1 in 100 of them have any property, landed or funded.
But I saw lots of lovely carriages on the way.
Oh, an income perhaps, but no property.
Oh.
Clergymen, lawyers from town, half-pay officers, widows with only a jointure. And what good can such people do to anybody, except maybe as they take our empty houses, and between you and me, I believe they are fools for not staying at home. Now, if we could get an heiress to Sanditon, if she could be sent here for her health, and if she were ordered to drink ass's milk, I could supply her, and then, when she got well, have her fall in love with Sir Edward.
That would be very fortunate indeed.
And his sister, Miss Esther, she must marry a person of fortune too. She must get herself a rich husband. Oh, young ladies without an income are very much to be pitied. But if Miss Esther thinks to talk me into inviting them to Sanditon House, she will find herself mistaken. Things have changed with me since last summer. I have Miss Clara staying with me now, and that makes a great difference.
Oh, well, yes, I'm sure it must.
And besides all this, am I to be filling my house to the prejudice of Sanditon? If people want to be by the sea, let them take lodgings. I mean, there are a great many empty houses. 3 on this very terrace, 3 lodging papers staring me in the face as we speak. And so next time Miss Esther talks about the damp at Denham Place and the efficacy of sea bathing, I shall advise them to take lodgings for a fortnight. Don't you think that's very fair, my dear? I mean, charity begins at home, you know.
That woman is very mean, and by connecting with her and coinciding with her, she makes others mean too. We talked of poems, but what of novels?
Aha, fair questioner. Such novels that exhibit the progress of strong passion, from the first germ of incipient susceptibility to the utmost energies of reason, half dethroned, where we see the strong spark of women's captivation elicit fire in the soul of man, as leads him to risk some aberration from the strict line of primitive obligations to hazard all, dare all, achieve all, to obtain her.
I think our taste in novels is not the same at all. Perhaps you might find such a woman, but I think your aunt would have you marry a rich heiress.
Well, I am determined to follow my heart, to capture beauty against the highest pitch of disdain or aversion, and to win the object of my passion to my will. Bye, my dear. My carriage awaits.